We should never take impeachment off the table. We should never take where we see law breaking. We should never take accountability off the table.
This nonsense from like AOC that he should be impeached is just absurd. Absurd. There's no... Okay, get back to me when you've read the Constitution or get a law degree, because you sound like an absolute...
Megyn Kelly triggered a moment so explosive it felt like the entire stage lurched off balance. This wasn't a standard pushback, it was a full-force strike straight out of a Hollywood showdown. AOC, usually owning every camera angle, suddenly appeared trapped in a storm, armed with nothing but a flimsy defense. Then came the twist that froze the room in total silence. No one saw it coming. After this scorched confrontation, viewing AOC the same way is no longer an option.
There is absolutely no ground to impeach the president. He 100% was within his constitutional authority and his congressionally authorized authority to do what he did on Saturday. Okay, but as for whether it's a good idea, that's a debate we should be having. And look, you know, if we could get congressional approval of the specific action, fine, I'm okay with that too. If you want to bring it to Congress, go ahead and see how that goes. I don't think it's necessary, but...
Megyn Kelly locked the spotlight directly on AOC, and what followed was anything but composed. It exploded into a full confrontation, with one side clearly unready for what was about to hit. Kelly didn't simply point out small flaws in AOC's polished image. She ripped straight through it, cutting it apart with wild precision, like scissors tearing through fresh wallpaper.
Check in on AOC and see what she has to say.
Reaction on what's going on with Elon Musk and President Trump on Twitter right now.
Oh man, the girls are fighting, aren't they? I think this breakup we've been seeing a long time coming, but we'll see what the impacts are of it legislatively.
Okay. You're so cool referring to them as the girls. She's above it all, Ben. That's what she's trying to telegraph. You see, she's the adult in the room, the one out there who does a preacher accent. And she leans into her fake Latina accent. And she's the adult in the...
If you are enjoying this fiery takedown, please hit that subscribe button. She shifted from a bubbly Instagram live favorite, chatting with followers and casually sipping wine, to standing frozen under Megyn Kelly's sharp stare, looking like she'd just discovered the Wi-Fi password had been changed without notice, right in front of everyone.
There's the true radical left, who's gone beyond all the identity issues. I mean, don't get me wrong. The person I'm going to show you is 100% wrapped in all of them, but like genuinely believes the Hitler fascist stuff, like is distraught because they really think Hitler just got reelected. Most of them were just pretending, but then there are the ones who genuinely believe it, like AOC.
We are about to enter a political period that will have consequences for the rest of our lives. Donald Trump has talked about turning the military on U.S. citizens that he deems his domestic political enemies.
Here's the blunt truth about AOC. Her entire approach runs almost entirely on atmosphere and emotion. There's no firm backbone of concrete facts or clearly defined plans. It's social media performance dressed up with dramatic flair. Viewers aren't tuning in for serious policy breakdowns. They show up because she can turn a quick 30-second clip into something that feels like a TED Talk crashing straight into a Broadway production.
AOC has been out there on this, I don't know if it's campaign trail, I don't know what we're calling it, but this like fight the oligarchy tour with Bernie Sanders, from which, you know, venue to venue, she travels first class, sipping her champagne, you know, in the first class cabin as the losers and plebs walk by to coach. They're the ones she's really fighting for. And she's decided to ramp up her anti-Trump rhetoric in a way she's done before, but that could be deeply problematic for her if Trump actually decides to pay some attention to her.
But Megyn doesn't operate in theatrics. She strikes with a level of precision that makes even the most confident politician begin questioning their own script. And that's exactly what unfolded here. AOC walked in expecting her usual routine to work. Wide gestures, fiery delivery, maybe a clever comparison designed to travel fast online. Megyn shut it down instantly. She dismantled every claim step by step until AOC looked less like a seasoned lawmaker and more like a student scrambling through a last-minute presentation. The real power of Megyn's takedown was the method. No cheap shots, no flashy distractions, just facts, focus, and razor-sharp logic cutting through AOC's talking points faster than glitter vanishing in a washing machine. The audience didn't just react, they locked up. Watching Megyn calmly peel away AOC's polished image felt like trying to assemble IKEA furniture with missing parts and no instructions. And the moment that sealed it, the self-styled voice of the people, famous for charm, confidence, and designer sneakers, suddenly looked strikingly ordinary.
Report today that AOC may be getting ready to run for president, that her team is looking, and I know you've said she could potentially do it, but her team is looking at maybe Senate. Chuck Schumer is, I think, going to be 78 when he runs for re-election. That's really old, and the Democrats seem to get that now. Or she might just go for president. And at the same time, this happened today. The Republicans in the House introduced a resolution to honor Charlie Kirk. It condemns the murder and it prays.
AOC's image is managed so tightly it makes an Apple product launch look like an open mic night. But Megyn didn't just notice the cracks, she pried them open for everyone to see. Within seconds, AOC's polished "I'm the future" routine stopped feeling inevitable and started looking like a failed audition that somehow wandered onto C-SPAN. And here's where it really hit. It wasn't just about policy. Megyn went straight after the performance itself, the layer most people were too cautious to touch. While others argued over talking points, Megyn pulled back the curtain on the act, the dramatic hand motions, the perfectly timed pauses, the emotion that felt rehearsed down to the second. It was like revealing the Wizard of Oz, only to find someone with a microphone and a fog machine pretending to be larger than life. Once you saw it, there was no unseeing it. The reaction said everything. Half the audience frozen in disbelief, the other half laughing in shock. Somewhere, a Brooklyn barista was probably still defending AOC's brilliance, even as the moment collapsed in real time. But it didn't matter. The illusion was finished. Megyn laid it bare. The Emperor wasn't just without clothes. She was trying to return them for store credit. And the timing? Flawless. AOC had been thriving in influencer politics, where a clever comeback stands in for real change. And Megyn shut that fantasy down on the spot.
Of course he's lying and abusing and manipulating the stock market too. When he talks about rapists and criminals, he should look in the mirror.
Clearly saying that Donald Trump is a racist. Rapist. She also thinks he's a racist. He's all the ists. But here, she's in deep trouble because he was not found liable for rape. And George Stephanopoulos just had to pay ABC some $15 million to President Trump to settle a defamation lawsuit.
When Megyn called her out, the truth hit like a thunderclap. Comebacks only work when real substance is underneath them. Without that foundation, it's just noise, a blur of political hand gestures flailing in midair. And this is where it truly stung. AOC likely assumed she could manage it the usual way. Flip the narrative, lean into victimhood, rally supporters, sprinkle in a few hashtags. This time, that playbook collapsed completely. Politicians get challenged on policy every day, but how often are they exposed for the performance itself? That's where Megyn struck dead center. She turned AOC's greatest advantage, her command of attention, into the very thing that unraveled her. The theatrics that once felt powerful suddenly looked forced, even strained. And in politics, nothing falls apart faster than the image of someone pushing too hard. By the end, Megyn didn't just win the exchange. She changed how people saw AOC. Because once you notice that the so-called voice of the people sounds like she's auditioning every time she takes a microphone, you can't unsee it. It's like realizing your favorite action hero never performed the stunts, and the illusion breaks instantly.
There's AOC, who said the following.
And beliefs were ignorant, uneducated, and sought to disenfranchise millions of Americans, far from the working tirelessly to promote unity, unquote, asserted by the majority in this resolution.
Then she voted no. She refused to join in the resolution. Consequences to her politically for doing that?
I would love to have her run for president of the Democratic side. It's a contrast, right? What you see is what you get. If that's what you think can lead this country, is that where your values are? Is that what you think will continue to promote American freedom and liberty?
Here's the real twist. This wasn't even Megyn at full speed. This was Megyn on a routine day, coffee in hand, calmly dismantling a politician like it was nothing more than a warm-up exercise. Imagine the fallout if she ever went all in on AOC. At that point, it wouldn't resemble an interview at all. It would be a full political teardown delivered with a relaxed smile, because once Megyn fixes that spotlight on someone, the internet refuses to blink. Memes flood timelines, late-night hosts scramble for angles, and frantic aides rush to control the damage. Spoiler, it never works. At this stage, AOC's safest move might be to fully lean into the act, break into show tunes on the House floor, complete with jazz hands. At least then the laughs would be deliberate instead of accidental. But after Megyn's strike, the curtain dropped hard. The illusion split wide open. Suddenly, people were asking the question out loud. Wait, was this all just a performance? The most shocking part was how quickly the energy flipped the moment Megyn pulled AOC under that microscope. Seconds earlier, she looked untouchable. The internet's golden icon who seemed immune to criticism.
And the reason this is relevant is because a congresswoman who you may know as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been telling us for years that she is from the Bronx. And recently she had a fight with President Trump over tweet, text, truth, whatever. And she played tough and said, "Oh, don't you mess with me. I'm a Bronx girl. And we eat Queens boys for breakfast." Because that's where Trump was raised, in Queens. And respectfully, AOC. Well, that's real cute, except she only lived in the Bronx until she was age 5.
She could stumble over a policy point, not her metaphors, or toss out over-the-top analogies about billionaires swallowing planets. And the crowd would still erupt like she just closed a Broadway show. But Megyn wasn't there to clap. She pierced the illusion, and the confidence drained out in one long, uneasy release. That's the hard truth of performance politics. It only survives as long as the audience keeps buying into the act. And with surgical precision, Megyn pulled every string into plain sight. Picture AOC launching into her signature delivery, the wide-eyed stare, the perfectly timed pauses, the sweeping hand motion slicing the air like a conductor guiding an unseen orchestra. Normally, it works. People absorb it. But this time, with Megyn exposing the pattern, every move looked rehearsed, almost robotic. It was like watching a magician repeat the same trick after you already know where the card is hidden. Impressive once, uncomfortable the next. You could almost see the realization hit AOC in real time. Her entire brand depends on control of the mood, the message, and the impact behind every carefully measured glance and gesture.
The rest of her childhood, 1 through 12th grade, in Yorktown Heights, which is Westchester. And by any measure, it is richer, nicer, and more white collar than the Bronx, with all due respect to my friends in the Bronx. She's pretending to be a Bronx girl because she wants this to be part of her origin story, the same way as she wants now to be called Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Once Megyn stripped that control away, everything began to collapse. In an instant, AOC no longer appeared like a fearless figure challenging the world. She looked like a nervous performer freezing under an unforgiving spotlight. Megyn stayed calm, dismantling the script piece by piece, calling out each exaggerated gesture and making the unraveling even harder to watch. AOC thrives on having villains. She needs opponents who appear extreme or hostile to keep her momentum alive. But what happens when the person across from her simply smiles and points out that the Emperor is waving jazz hands in an empty room? There's no explosive showdown then, just silence, followed by the slow, unmistakable sound of credibility slipping away. Her supporters rushed online to manage the fallout, flooding social media with threads longer than short novels, bending logic to insist she wasn't exposed, that Megyn was unfair, that none of it mattered. But here's the irony. The louder they shouted, the clearer the damage became, because when it takes a 42-part thread to explain why someone wasn't embarrassed, they absolutely were.
Everyone knew her as Sandy Cortez when she was growing up, and her lies are coming to the fore. So, among other things, Benny Johnson, who's hilarious, and he's a great Twitter follow and has a great show, went to Yorktown Heights just to take a look and to talk to some folks there about AOC and what Yorktown is like and so on. And now some of her schoolmates, separate and apart from Benny, are weighing in on her claims.
Meanwhile, Megyn leaned back and let the aftermath unfold, probably sipping her coffee like someone calmly reviewing a task already finished. That's the force of a clean takedown. One precise strike is enough if it lands hard enough to echo. The clips kept cycling, memes spilled across every corner of the internet, and with each replay, AOC's performance looked worse than the last. It was almost poetic, like a gymnast landing a flawless triple flip, only to stumble during the final bow. Nobody remembers the flips. They remember the fall. The media ripple was impossible to miss. Outlets that once rushed to shield AOC suddenly began hedging, quietly admitting maybe she does lean too heavily on theatrics. Oh, now they notice. After years of dramatic speeches and carefully staged social media monologues, it took Megyn flipping on a giant neon spotlight for people to finally say it out loud. The timing couldn't have been better. It felt like a packed theater where everyone pretends a bad movie is brilliant until one voice says, "Wait, this is terrible," and suddenly the whole room nods along.
Fourth place, not necessarily fourth place. This is just, I'm going to start with as the fourth possibility, but I've got 4 total and you'll decide what order they go in. I'm going to kick it off with AOC. Okay. Her real name is Sandy Ocasio. This is what she went by her entire life, Sandy Ocasio. And only when she decided to run for office did she decide to suddenly become Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and lean into her Puerto Rican history, where her mother was born in Puerto Rico, but her father was born in New York City. And she decided to tell us sob stories about how she's from a poor family and she was living, paycheck to paycheck. Meanwhile, she was raised in a Tony part of Westchester called Yorktown Heights.
The memes finished the job. The internet doesn't care about nuance. It runs on punchlines. And Megyn served a full spread. Clips of AOC's dramatic hand waves looped non-stop with circus-style soundtracks, while her long pauses replayed as painfully awkward silences that made viewers cringe. Screenshots froze her mid-expression, stamped with captions like, "Award-worthy drama, zero policy." Once the internet locks in, credibility isn't just bruised, it's roasted, packaged, and archived forever. From that moment on, everything shifted. Every gesture looked rehearsed. Every pause felt staged. Every emotional appeal sounded less like real politics and more like an audition monologue. That's when the illusion finally split wide open. AOC's carefully built image fractured. Her supporters scrambled to tape it back together, and the media quietly admitted what they'd suspected for a long time. Meanwhile, Megyn stood steady, the one who pulled the mask off the performance. And here's the real kicker. This wasn't even a grand showdown. No roaring crowd, no dramatic finale. Just the cold realization that no one was buying the act anymore. The wires were exposed, the props were visible, and the person under the spotlight suddenly looked like they were trying far too hard. That was the takedown no one else dared to deliver, until Megyn did.